What's up guys, Jesse Pruitt here. One question I've been asked a lot in the last year or so is, do I use presets on my own photographs? Well, I wanted to dive a little bit more into this question today to figure out not only what are presets and how can you use them for you, but more importantly is, are they worth your hard-earned cash? So let's get started. If you're new to photography, you're probably asking yourself, what the heck are presets? Well, a preset is a series of adjustments or actions to a photograph that create a specific look. They can be used in Lightroom or Capture One or really any photo editing software that you'd like to use on a daily basis. Some of the best points of using presets would be to speed up your workflow. They're very simple to use and easy to install, and it is much less work in post-production. Some of the bad side of using presets is they can be very expensive. They might not look exactly the way you want them to do, and they kind of remove your own creative mind and creative process in post-production. Now, you can use a preset in any major photo editing software. Adobe Lightroom is the one that I've chosen to use on a daily basis, but Capture One and just about every other one you find on the internet does have installation of preset options. Even Instagram and Facebook have their own set of basic presets. There are these filters that you can adjust and tweak to make your own style or look. Presets can be found just about anywhere. In the last year or so, it's really blown apart for different artists and photographs selling off their own personal styles that you can use on your photographs. When I was new to photography, I had no idea what I was doing in post-processing. I didn't know how to edit, and I was shooting everything in JPEG. When I learned about raw photography and how it can really open up the gateway of editing and getting your own creative style, I searched on Google for how to find the best Lightroom presets. I came across a large series of photographs and photographers that were selling their presets for sometimes a very high amount of money, basically selling you on the fact that when you use these presets, you can get their look. Some were free to use, which I actually downloaded a handful of those just to see what kind of style I wanted to gear my photography towards. So some can be geared towards landscape photographers, portrait photographers, and pretty much anything in between. One of my favorite groups of photographers that do sell their presets online is called the Art of Visuals. Now, I originally found them on Instagram, and their style alone was what made me really want to commit to being a photographer, or at least getting more into it. So I looked up their website one day and I was able to download a couple of their artists' presets at a pretty low price. Some of their presets do change the photograph pretty dramatically and get a very creative style, and some are more subtle and a lot easier to use for different types of photographs. I would highly recommend checking them out, and I did put a link below to their webpage. Another very well-known photographer is Peter McKinnon. I think everybody at this point has heard his name, and if you've been searching YouTube or searching different photography websites, you've probably stumbled across him. He sells his own preset pack as well, which I have also downloaded, and I'd like to show you some examples from that today as well. They're a little more contrasty and a little more punchy to give it that film grainy look to them, but they can be used on just about any photograph as well. If you're struggling to figure out what style you would like to use or what kind of personality you want to put into your photographs, go on Instagram, search your favorite photographers on Google, and check out their web pages. Sometimes just getting examples or finding different ideas can get you started off in your own creative process. Installing your own presets into Lightroom is pretty simple, so we're going to give a quick walkthrough on the computer, and I'll show you guys how easy that actually is. What you want to do is get into the preference folder, click on presets, Lightroom presets, and simply drag and drop the preset folder that you've downloaded to your computer into this folder as well. You'll see it snap copy into there. When you restart Lightroom, you'll see those presets pop up on the left side of the Develop tab. Some photographers believe that presets are not good to use. The main reason being is because they essentially take your creative process and make it someone else's. They're taking the ideas of a different photographer and overlaying them on your own photographs. I don't necessarily agree with this. I really do think that you can tweak somebody else's presets or go through your own creative process by adjusting theirs. So whether it be learning tonal contrast or understanding tonal curves a bit better, or understanding how to adjust colors to create a natural look, Something that might not be learned right off the gate might be learned after using someone else's preset. I've also heard some photographers say that edits should be personal, just like the photograph itself. And some photographers do market themselves based on the fact that you're going to be able to take photos just like them if you're using their presets. Personally, I think you can speed up your workflow dramatically and be able to create your own style even after using someone else's presets, and I'm going to show you how to do that today. Alright, so now that we're in Lightroom, I wanted to show you how you can use presets to get that own look you're going for in your own photographs. This is a shot I took specifically for the thumbnail of this video, and I wanted to show exactly how you can use presets to get a specific style out of the shots. Now in the Develop tab of Lightroom, on the left side here, you're going to notice all the different preset options that I've downloaded over the years, and I'm going to give you a few examples of how these can be used for your own creative workflow. Up at the top here I have my Art of Visuals presets, but the one I want to use specifically today is going to be from Peter McKinnon's lineup down at the bottom here. So a few different things to notice is in the upper left of the screen you're going to see that the preview photo is changing looks as I scroll through the presets. This is to give you a good idea of how it's going to come out and what that look is going to be when it's done. So what I would like to do is show you exactly the look that I'm going for the thumbnail in this photo. And what you can actually do is preview, click, and see what it comes out as. So this is Frontier, a little dark, a little moody. Heat stroke gives you a little blue contrast with that teal and orange look to it. So on and so forth. Now, some of the other artists that have produced presets over the time that I've downloaded are up top here, and some of the looks are pretty good, some of them are very different. This is actually one of my favorite photographers, Calvin Dempsey. He's actually a photographer for the Art of Visuals as well, and he sold his presets through there. He does a lot of nature and travel photography, so I've used it for some of those as well, but he gets that grainy look to it. You can kind of see exactly what he's going for out of his presets. Now down below, back to Peter McKinnon. This is the preset I want to use specifically. It's a very solid black and white shot. Now, when I first click it, you're probably thinking that does not look right. It's very underexposed, doesn't really bring out the tones that I was originally going for. So now, the idea of a preset is to not just stop here, it's to customize it and make it your own. So what I would like to do first and foremost is bump the exposure up to about there, maybe a little further. There we go. So now you can get a much more better exposed image. By looking at the histogram, it's starting to bring up those highlights quite a bit. I don't really want to do much with these as well, mainly because they already seem to be actually very balanced. Peter, I noticed, is probably one of the better examples of a one-click stop for an edit within Lightroom with his presets. A lot of the other ones I've spent hours tweaking them, making my own. His seem to be pretty good right out of the box. Now this is your tonal adjustments. For black and white photography, I typically do leave that more straight. I like to leave that contrast between the lights and the dark areas of the photograph. But one thing that does seem to get missed in Lightroom quite often is the brush tool. So what I want to do here is click on Dodge Lighten. Here's just an example of everything you can do with this. It's pretty much just a local adjustment brush. I do want to use the Dodge Lighten aspect of this to be able to brighten up certain aspects of this photo. I apologize, I'm so zoomed into my eye, but this is for creative purposes only. So what I want to do here is just simply paint over this portion of my eye where it's just a little bit too dark and it's not really showing up too well. And a quick shortcut is a Command O. Brings up the specific area of where this mask is being laid out. Just give a quick paint on that eye, bring this over here, give a quick paint on this eye. I'm going to Command O again to get out, zoom out of the photograph, and what I would like to do is just bring up the exposure in the eyes to make them a bit more noticeable. Now if you go too far, you're going to see this crazy zombie look to it. It's a little creepy, so I'm going to bring that up just enough to balance off the contrast in my eyes. Click done, and that's a very quick example of how you can use a preset to edit much faster. Now I wanted to give one more example of how presets can be used for different types of photographs. Now let me get this reset back to the original shot. This is actually an overlook view at the end of Grandview Avenue here in Pittsburgh. Just gets the city in the background, which I thought was pretty cool. And you have this graffiti wall that shows up pretty good as well. So what I want to show you here is how different styles of presets change the entire look of an image. Now, to me, this was a dark, moody day. It was very cloudy. You had a lot going on, a lot of water sitting on the ground, and a little bit of snow here as well. So something like Evermint from Kyle Finn Dempsey, which is very bright, very colorful, doesn't really match the look that I was going for in this photograph. So now if I come down here to this folder here, give a quick click. Now this is called Moody Cityscape. It's one of my favorite shots, one of my favorite styles. Very high contrast and a lot of sharpening going on here. So it's not the best for just about every photograph, but stuff that have very strong lines or very defined attributes in the photograph, this does come out very well. But what I'm noticing here is I'm not kind of digging the orange hue that's overtaking the entire photograph. So what I want to do is simply take the temperature and bring it back to something that resembles more to what was going on in person. Brings the sky back to more of a natural look and kind of pulls out that orange hue that was created over the entire image. And what I want to do is give a quick bump in the highlights just to make that glow look. Nothing insane, just a quick bump on that. Now, one of my favorite attributes of Lightroom to mess with is the tonal curve. You see here, the preset is actually crushing my blacks and leaving everything else pretty straight, and then just a slight crush on the highlights. Now, one thing you can do is tweak this pretty dramatically. It gives a very cool look, but you don't want to go overboard in this mid-tone area. You'll get a very weird look, and it doesn't really come out something that's appealing at all to the eye. So if I were to take the center of the tonal curve and jam it way up, you get this crazy blown out, horrible looking image. I'm going to reset that back to where it was. Alright, so one thing I do like to mess with pretty dramatically is the shadows or the low tones of a photograph. So if you're looking at the histogram up top, you see the different breakdown of your highlights, mids, and shadows. The same thing goes for your tonal curve. So you have your highlights, mids, and shadows. So people like that faded look. It's been popular for quite a long time now. That's going to be this lower portion of the photograph. So what you typically want to do is click just up your tonal curve, get that point, and then crush your blacks. Well, if I bring that back down, you get a much more clean image. It's much more detailed in this area here, especially where the focus was set. And you see, you can notice a much more dramatic difference in the depth of the photograph as well. But because the clarity is so high on this image and the sharpening is set so high, it does seem to look a lot better with those blacks crushed a bit. So I don't want to go as far as it was before. I'm actually just going to bring that down a slight amount. Now I think the coloration of this image actually looks very good. I kind of dig how the fact that the blacks and whites pop heavily and these oranges and reds pop out as well, so I'm not going to mess with that. But one thing I do like to change on this preset as well is the masking tool here for your sharpening. Now, sharpening is set very, very high. It's set to 100. That's why it works exceptionally well in a city image, that you do have a lot of defined lines. But one thing I want to do is come down to this masking tool right here. I'm going to hold down Alt Option on a Mac, and I want to just start sliding this up. Now you see the image start to appear. What the mask does is essentially gets rid of anything I don't want to sharpen and keeps only the bright areas of the image that I do want to sharpen. Well, in this case, I do want to keep it pretty strong, so I'm going to stop there at about 27. Keeps these lines extremely defined, but you lose a little bit of the over sharpening that was going on up in the sky here as well to give a little bit cleaner image. I always want to remove my chromatic aberration just to get rid of anything that may have shown up in my lens. And I want to enable profile corrections. Now this is automatic based off the fact that it is a Zeiss lens that directly connects to my camera. It is the Zeiss Batis 18mm at 2.8. So the profile automatically is picked up. If you're using a manual lens, you'll have to go in there and set that yourself. But one thing I want to change back is my vignetting. I use a lot of vignetting in my photographs. I think that's a very cool look. And I kind of like to leave it as much as possible to really draw your eye to the city itself in this shot. So I'm gonna leave that where it's at. I actually want to bring in a little bit of the midpoint to bring the sky out a little more. Maybe a quick click up there as well. Then I want to feather this back out just a tad to kind of give you a little more depth in the shot as well. I'm going to leave grain on 10 with a roughness of 51 just to continue on with that. And you can actually dehaze this shot just a bit. It gets rid of a little bit rid of that faded look that I was going for, but it really makes the sky pop. And that's about how I would use a preset in Lightroom. As always, thank you for watching. And keep in mind that presets are not always for everyone. Some people would prefer just to learn their own creative style and go through their own creative process. Some would prefer to speed up the workflow and get things done a little bit faster. So just use your judgment when you're looking at your different favorite artists and figuring out if you'd like to download their presets and if it's worth spending your own money on. Don't be afraid to push the limits in your comfort zone. Take different kinds of shots, take different lighting, exposure, change the aperture around, and when you're in post-processing, do the same. Tweak the sliders, change things up a bit more, just to see if you can get something that looks more of what you want it to look like. And most importantly, do your research before you click buy. Check out that photographer's Instagram page, Facebook, maybe their own portfolio, just to see if that's the kind of style you're looking for. If you like this video, hit that like button, drop a comment down below. Let me know if you use your own presets. I'd love to see your own workflow and see what you guys can create as well. And I've dropped a link to my own Instagram account down below. Please feel free to give me a follow on there. Let me know what you think about mine. And thanks again. I'll see you in the next one.